Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane and we are standing on the 4th floor in an incredible historic apartment in Copenhagen that is filled with dreamy vintage elements, bold, deeply rich colors and an incredible design. Come in and let's explore this design together. This gorgeous apartment is one of the most beautiful historic and vintage gems I've ever seen, and I'm super excited to show you. Let's go inside and take a look. If you want to help me and want to continue seeing incredible designs like these, like this video and subscribe to our channel so that we can continue on our mission to bring you the best design in the world. When you enter, you are just greeted by this world of colors. The two dominant colors in the color palette is a strong, rich, glamorous green that spans across the kitchen, and that is also found again in the wallpaper that I will show you in a second. The rest of the apartment is painted in this very soft, warm eggshell orange, and it just has a beautiful tone, and this is just an incredible backdrop for all of the vintage finds. Now, when I entered the apartment, I was absolutely amazed because the vibrant wallpaper that you can see in the apartment is actually by William Morris, who is also a hero of mine, as well as of the lady who designed the space. And I'm sure all of you know that I am obsessed with him, and you are as well. If you're new to this channel, William Morris was a pioneer of the arts and crafts movement, and he always created these incredible pieces of furniture and especially floral wallpapers, such as this one. And so the incredible wallpaper by William Morris was the first item that was inside this apartment. And then from it, she just pulled her inspiration and created the rest of the design. For the kitchen, she wanted to recreate this kind of glamorous, luxurious, but at the same time laid back atmosphere and feel. And so she decided to use green tiles as the backdrop to also cite the industrial details of the house, because this in fact used to be a brewery, and so you have the connection of the outside white facade and the green tiles on the inside. But because of the deep green color palette and everything being perfectly color-coded and large slabs of stone, the kitchen today feels more like a luxurious bar in London than an industrial kitchen, but it is my absolute favorite piece inside the design. And of course, what other better color to pair a dark green with? It's a dark red. And so inside the kitchen, and this is incredible, we actually have 3 historic theater chairs that are upholstered in this dark red velvet fabric. And this is incredible to have an unexpected piece of something that you usually wouldn't have in your home, and to put it in your kitchen in a place where it technically doesn't belong. I love these moments, and this is why I'm so obsessed with this design, because you just have all of these small unexpected moments throughout it. And the theater chairs also cite the own personal history of the woman who lives here, because she actually is a costume designer. And we will find little bits of the theater and the opera throughout this apartment. And if you want to get more daily design inspiration and also more behind the scenes content on our travels and everything else, check out our Instagram over here. Throughout the kitchen, all of the knobs, door handles and water faucets are kept in this golden brass color to just finish off this luxurious and glamorous feel. And throughout the apartment, there's a lot of golden mirrors and golden accents. And so you have this very coherent color palette throughout the space. What I think is also really interesting about the kitchen is that we have these 2 half-high walls on both sides that kind of zone the area and give the kitchen a sense of having its own space. But at the same time, the room is still open, loft-like, and there's a connection of all of the energies inside the apartment. So as soon as you enter the apartment, you are just transported and thrown back in time, because you just enter this historic and vintage world that is filled with incredible gems. The woman who owns the apartment has spent over half a year renovating it and creating this incredible world, which we will look at today. What I love so much is that she didn't just go to regular furniture stores, but she really took time going to flea market, vintage stores and thrift stores and just finding all of these incredible gems throughout Copenhagen. It's just a real example that if you are dedicated, you can find anything and everything. The building itself is built in 1847, and it formerly actually used to be a brewery, like a lot of apartments in Copenhagen. And so the outside facade is clad in white shiny tiles, and you will see them sited throughout the apartment, which I also really love. So because this apartment is in the 4th floor and in the top floor, we have a tilted roof and we're basically living almost up in the attic, but that doesn't take away from the charm and grandeur of the space because there has been so much love poured into the apartment. Next to the kitchen, we have the dining room area, and the dining room area consists of a large round table that is paired with wooden vintage chairs. And of course, there's a large vintage candle holder on top of them and a gorgeous chandelier, and you are just really transported back in time, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. What's even more incredible is that behind the dining table, there's a cabinet, and on top of it, there's a large Lego building that was built by her husband, and it's a storefront with all kinds of different buildings. I can just imagine how much time he spent creating these houses and building them, and it looks like a masterpiece. When I entered, I thought he was like a set designer or something, but actually he was a novelist. But these personal details really are what just tell your design story on just what makes this place absolutely stand out. Another love that the woman and I share, not just the love of William Morris, but also the love of lamps. And that is that she's collected, I don't know, maybe 20 lamps or probably even more throughout the apartment. And she loves to find different lamp shades and lamps in different vintage stores and also try to make some work which look a little bit odd. And I have a personal favorite. So the red lamp that kind of looks like an alien, but also at the same time it's a vintage lamp, is my absolute favorite, and it just adds so much life and character to the design. And when in the evening it's getting dark, you turn on all of the lamps and the space truly comes to life and feels really vibrant and full of character. Now, because we're in the attic and the walls are tilted, there isn't too much space, but the space still feels very large and not tight at all, because surrounding us there's really low profile furniture, and this just creates the sense of having much more space. And so for the sofa area, there's 2 green velvet sofas, and of course they're decorated with pillows, different lamps and small sofa tables that you can move around. Throughout the living room, there's multiple seating possibilities with different vintage chairs or sofas, and there's all of these different materials that make the space come to life. Like, for example, there's 2 leather sofas that just invite you in, with sofa tables that are filled with silverware, glasses and lamps. And then there's 2 more lounge chairs that I'm obsessed with that also mimic and cite the vibrant flower wallpaper of William Morris, and it just creates this very eclectic and interesting design. And you can really see how the different items inside the apartment speak to one another and tell a consistent story. In the apartment, there's 2 bedrooms, and through this black door with rich paneling, we enter the first one. Now, this bedroom is an absolute dream. It is colored in a soft, light green color, and also draped with yet again another wallpaper by William Morris, and that just makes me really happy. And because we have this tilt of the roof in the middle of the room, the designer decided to put a wooden bed right beneath it, and so when you wake up, you just look at this gorgeous wallpaper that is above you. And to both sides, there's vintage cabinets made from wood that have this strong veining and you can see all of the books that are being read here. And another personal favorite of mine, behind me, there's this seating niche where you can sit down, read a book, or just relax. And it is also clad with the same William Morris wallpaper, and it's super soft and comfortable. And it's often these, at first, very strange architectural features, like this empty space over there, that can be turned into the best of spaces in apartments like these. Also, this bedroom has its own balcony. And so on this balcony, you can have your cup of coffee, you can have your breakfast, and just take in the Scandinavian light and bright air and just enjoy the view. This is the primary bedroom, and it is an absolute fairy tale of a bedroom. The wall and ceiling are painted in this very soft yellowish beige, and the wooden floor is creaking below us, and it is filled with all of these incredible vintage items. I'm absolutely obsessed with this light green Baroque cabinet behind me. It has a mirror, and it is just looks like it's from another century, and it just looks absolutely incredible. Over here, there's a small desk with a vintage chair where you can sit, do your makeup, or write a little bit. And this space is like every other space, filled with different unique lamps that add pops of color. And the best rooms are always the ones which have a lot of different sources of lighting. So if you are struggling with your design, that's like a great way to start, to just try to add more sources of light throughout your design. And even in the primary bedroom, the design language of the William Morris wallpaper has been integrated. And so in the lampshade, there's all of these small little flowers, or the cabinet that has been turned into a bedside table also is painted in all of these little floral motifs. And you can just really see how integrated and cohesive the design story is in this apartment. Also, the historic structure of the building is exposed, and so there's these large wooden beams of the attic, and they just really underline the architecture of the space and remind us that we're standing in a historic brewery building in Copenhagen. And of course, the bedroom is being flooded with light because we have a large window front that is framed by two dark red velvet curtains that also remind us of the theater world, and the space just has an incredible design story. And you can really see how the different themes of the design language are integrated in every single space. Over here is the bathroom. And the bathroom also integrates the same color palette like in the rest of the apartment. So the walls and the ceiling is colored in this soft orange beige, and it just feels like the room is being flooded with light. And there actually is a skylight above that lets the blue sky and the light flood in, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Other than that, the bathroom is quite minimalistic, but of course there's vintage details and a vibrant green plant that brings the space to life. One of the most underrated interior design tools isn't furniture, but it actually is light control. Now, when people think of window treatments, they often jump for full-on straight blackout curtains. And today, we are going to install two different Bringnox shades, the sponsor of today's video, each solving a completely different design problem. So I'm going to take you along as we transform both my living room as well as my bathroom using custom Bringnox shades. But before we order the shades, I'm going to show you the Bringnox fabric swatch book. So the questions I'm asking myself when choosing the colors for my shades are: what materials are already present in the bathroom and living room? What color palette already exists? This is really important for me, you know me. And also how much light is coming in at different times throughout the day and from which directions. Here, on the one hand, we need light, but of course, because it is a bathroom and there is a shower and a bathtub, we also need privacy. So what we're going to do here is we're going to install one large Bringnox shade, which will create privacy, but at the same time, because it's very sheer, it will let a lot of light inside the bathroom. And again, because it's motorized, you can just adjust it effortlessly, even with wet hands or while you're in a bath. For my privacy, I've created a routine with the Bringnox shades so that they automatically get lowered in the morning before I shower and get ready. So this means that there is no more stress about me forgetting and worrying that somebody can watch me from the outside. The soft, warm linen tones filter the daylight instead of blocking it, so the light becomes much calmer and more diffuse. Now, my favorite thing about these shades is the fact that they have this incredible texture and material to them, and these shades really give this otherly rather cold bathroom. We have a lot of cold materials, so like white tiles, white ceramic bathtubs, everything's kind of sterile and a bit too white and boring for me. And the linen material of the Bringnox shades just add this really strong layer of warmth to the entire design, and it just really takes away this harsh clinical bathroom brightness. So the dining area gets beautiful daylight throughout the day, but the moment you actually sit here to eat in the late afternoon or to drink a cup of coffee, you actually notice something else, and that is that you're actually being blinded by the light in the late afternoon. And this is exactly one of the reasons why people often decide to go for these dark, a little bit heavy blackout curtains, but we are going to do something much cooler here that will make the space feel much lighter, more modern, and much more designed. And this is exactly why the Bringnox shades are so perfect, because we didn't have to choose a full blackout, but instead we chose around 50% sheerness, which means that you still have all of this beautiful soft light entering the home. Fabric has a soft woven quality that really adds warmth without feeling heavy. And what I really love about the Bringnox shades is that they feel really calm and natural, almost like adding yet another piece of texture instead of like a technical installation. The Roman folds give the window more presence and rhythm, which helps make the dining area and the wall feel much more complete. And at the same time, this sheer material gently filters the sun. And because the shade is motorized, adjusting it is literally just one touch away, or it can even be part of your daily routine if you connect it to a home system. So I used to sit here and eat, and sometimes the sunlight would come out and completely blind me. With the Bringnox shades, I can now simply lower the shades a little via Alexa, Google Assistant, or Apple HomeKit. Alexa, lower the shades. And one very intentional design decision here is the mounting height. So instead of placing the shade directly above the window, we decided to put it up all the way at the ceiling, because this does two things. It visually elongates the wall, and it also makes the ceiling feel higher. The installation itself is very simple and straightforward. Even I could do it myself with a little help. And you know, for me, good interior design is about reducing friction in your everyday life. Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane, and we are standing in Copenhagen in the district that is called Piserenden. And today we are going to look at this exact incredible medieval townhouse that has been turned into a Scandinavian and Bohemian heaven with some space age details. So if you like Scandinavian design, you will love this video. I'm super excited that we get to be here today because Copenhagen is one of my absolute all-time favorite cities. If you don't know me, my name is Jane and I'm an interior designer, and on Interior Insights we try to show you the most incredible design all over the world. And if you want to help me and the channel, the easiest way you can do is by going and subscribing to the channel right now, so that we can continue on our mission to showcase incredible design. And if you want to get more daily design inspiration and also more behind the scenes content on our travels and everything else, check out our Instagram over here. And help design rise to the top. Now, let's go inside. Now, this is the first floor of this house, and the house itself was actually built in 1730, so it is over 300 years old, which is absolutely incredible. We are already standing in the living room area, and you can see that the space isn't too big, but that doesn't make it any less grand or incredible. And in the living room, there actually is a detail that dates back much further that is a little surprise that I will show you later. Now, this apartment is located in the Copenhagen district that is called Pisserenden, which, if you would translate it to English, doesn't translate to anything good. So this district actually used to be a workers' district where you always had the cattle and livestock. The family who bought this house during COVID is a family of entrepreneurs and musicians, and they really poured their love into this apartment, which you can see in every single detail. Around us, we still have the structure of the 1800s because the outside facades are actually listed, so you're not able to change them, but on the inside you have much more possibility of changing it. This design is very beachy and soft. We have a white and light backdrop and the historical structure of the apartment, so the wooden beams that go on the top have been painted in this soft pastel blue that you also find on the outside of the facade. So you just have this very cohesive color palette. The owner and designer really wanted to mix a lot of different styles while keeping true to the Scandinavian and Danish design heritage of the country. So we have a lot of Danish furniture items, such as these two gorgeous Danish teak sofa chairs that you just want to fall inside, and they are draped in these lush furs, so you just have this very cozy and vibey atmosphere. My all-time favorite item inside this apartment is this absolutely incredible space-age lamp, because it just really fills the space of the room and it draws your eye in and locks it. Quick note, so obviously I absolutely love this apartment, and the most important part about this apartment actually is its color palette. It really creates this incredible energy and flow. If we take a closer look at the color palette, we can see that it is a very warm and analog color palette, meaning that all of the colors that are within this apartment lie on one side of the color wheel. So we have the gray, beige, browns, and these warm neutrals that really make the base and create this incredible sense of depth within the color palette. And then as some pops of color, we have all of these incredible pops of green. Green is a very harmonious color. It is the most balanced color on the entire spectrum, and it just creates this very lively, vibrant energy and just brings instant life into the room. So the number one question I get in my DMs is always people writing me and asking how they can fix their color palette. And so I've created a color course that guides you step by step through creating your own color palette. We cover color psychology frameworks and rules with lots of real-life examples. If you're afraid of making decisions regarding the color choices of your home, if you want to learn everything on color psychology and theory, it is exactly for you. So join the color course now and stop confusion and gain clarity on your color choices. The link's in the description, or you can just scan this QR code. Now, because the space isn't too big, all of the furniture is kept quite low so that you just have this expansive feeling of height. And this is always a really cool trick if you don't have incredibly high ceilings or large spaces. And then again, just to fill up the space and to just brighten up the design itself, we have big plants added here and there. There even is a plant hanging from one of the wooden beams, so the entire room really filled with love and light. Another absolute favorite of mine is this gorgeous Danish couch that we have, and it has a very low profile, and it just has this very sleek round curve that just really takes away from all of the straight geometry and structure of the building. And then we have this raw slab of wood as a sofa table, and it is even lower. And if you take a closer look, it looks almost like driftwood through, and you can just really feel the history. And you can really just get a sense that this space isn't some super polished space, but it really is just a space of depth and layered history. And I absolutely love getting lost in the details. Over here, we have a small wooden shelf that is filled with different beverages, so you can mix yourself some cocktails. And you can really see that everything in this apartment is of very high quality, but at the same, you still have this strong coastal flair and boheme design. So you have a lot of different fabrics, you have furs, carpets, you have plants hanging here and there, and a lot of these natural raw materials. And I absolutely love it because you can just really get lost in the cohesive design story that is being told. Another small element that really ties the room together is that on this side of the wall, we have striped wallpaper. And this again is just a very nostalgic printed wallpaper that just really sets the mood and sets the tone of the apartment. The couple is also very fond of collecting a lot of different artworks. So on the wall, we have all of these different sketches, and there even is a TV hiding behind one of them. I usually hate TVs because they ruin the entire space, but these are the only ones that I like because you can just disguise them as a painting and nobody knows. And we even have some historic sketches that used to be used in the universities to teach medical students about the anatomy of the human body, and you will find them throughout the apartment. And I really just love the graphic nature of all of these different sketches. They give the design a very spontaneous feel. Now, my favorite room inside this apartment actually is the bathroom because it is inspired by these gorgeous backyard colors that we just had a look at. But first, let me show you the bedroom. So we are already standing in it, and you just have this bohemian fairy-like atmosphere. We have a large bed that is covered with layers and layers of different pillows and fabrics and overthrows, and this just creates this very luxurious and lush feeling. And because we don't have too much space, we have a sleek headboard that doubles as a bedside stand, and the two bedside lamps on the sides are actually mounted to the wall so that you don't need some extra space. And I love their functionality, and I love their industrial character because you can just pull them out and push them back in, and they just add this rustic ambience. Opposite of the bed, we have a mirror with fairy lights, a large wardrobe where you can put all of your things, and then we have this gorgeous wooden desk where you can sit down and journal some thoughts. And the atmosphere that has been created in the bedroom is an absolute dream because you just have all of these different types of materials that have a history to them and that have soul and that just come from a different place, and I absolutely love it. Over here we have a little mirror, and in each of the corners of the different rooms we have candles added and little scents here and there and plants added and even more lights draped around the corners, and just creates an absolute magnificent one-in-a-kind experience. Like in the living room, on top of the bed we have two anatomy sketches that also come from historic universities, and I just love the humor that they convey. And because the space isn't too large, the owner got rid of all of the different doors because they would just be unnecessary clutter inside the space, and instead just beautifully framed the entryways so that you have your little luxurious moment within the design. Now, let me take you to the kitchen. So the kitchen is right over here. We have an incredible kitchen. It is kept in this entire gray color palette. And a thing that the designer loves to do is to just paint the ceiling the exact same color as the walls. And you will find this throughout the rooms. And it just instantly makes the room feel much more connected and like its own little world. And it's a very simple thing to do that has a great effect. The kitchen itself consists of a custom kitchen design, and there was just a lot of focus to create a lot of different storage area. And so you have these kitchen cabinets that almost seem like walls where you can just hide all of your clutter, and this just gives the room much more space and makes it feel very designed and curated. At the same time, you can see all of these gorgeous historical details, such as the wooden beams in the ceiling, or on this side of the wall where the wooden structure of the wall is exposed. And I absolutely love it whenever you don't cover up the history, but actually show it, because it just makes you feel so much more connected to the design and to the architecture, and also, of course, to the time when it was built. The kitchen is kept in a very gray and muted color palette, and we have this very classical yet contemporary design. So the kitchen is completely paneled with flat panels that give it a very clean yet sophisticated look. And for the counters, we just have one same slab of stone that is repeated again and again. And over here we have my favorite little area, because over here we have gorgeous windows that let the green flood in from the garden, and it's a super rare thing to have a garden in Copenhagen, as you can probably imagine. And the golden water faucet just tops it off and just finishes the story of this historical yet modern dream. Over here we have a little seating area, and this is just a great example of what you can do with little space, because this area is zoned with a carpet, so it acts as its own area. But then again, you just have two small chairs that can be rotated and quite a small table, but it feels like its own entire area because of the way that it was done, and it's a very smart move. And now to the surprise. So actually, you won't believe it, but below the living room, we actually have a wine cellar that dates back even further, I think around 1500. So we actually have a medieval wine cellar below the living room, and it also can't be changed. It's protected by Copenhagen, which is incredible, which means that it will hopefully be here forever. And this is just one of these little moments that I absolutely love when visiting these spaces, because you never know what you will find. And it's almost like you are uncovering history on the go. And on the floor, you even have these metal rings where you can like pull up a door and then go downside. And it's incredible. So now let me show you the incredible backyard and garden. Follow me. So here we actually have an extra door that leads us directly into the garden, and you won't believe it. Now, this is the backyard and garden, and it is just one lush bohemian dream. So all over the backyard, we have different seating areas. Usually there aren't that many seating areas, but tomorrow there will be a party here, so that's why everything is extra special. Now, there aren't actually a lot of gardens in Copenhagen, so we are really lucky, and this is very rare. And what's really interesting is that, like I mentioned before, the facade is in this soft blue, and you're not allowed to change it, but actually the backyard, and if you take a look around, all of the houses in the backside are painted in this bright, strong terracotta orange, and they're also not allowed to be changed, which is of course incredible. So these colors will be preserved. And I absolutely love this lush jungle into which this backyard was turned, because you just have these orange walls, these incredible bohemian, relaxed and colorful seating areas, and then just this incredible vast plant collection and different succulents and different vines that are being draped around the corners or around the walls, and everything just feels super alive and just very unlike the rest of Copenhagen. So this really truly is a gem. In the evenings, the backyard just absolutely turns to life, even more than during the day, because we have all of these fairy lights all over the place, or in front of me, we even have a fireplace, and it's just an absolutely magical, one-of-a-kind experience and atmosphere that we have here. Now, let me show you my favorite part inside this house, and that is the absolute gorgeous bathroom. So, behind this door, we actually have yet again a whole nother room hiding, and I love that this door basically almost seems invisible when you come in, because it is very narrow, and you can see that this is kind of an unlucky situation, but the way that it was solved makes it seem very natural. Now, let's go inside my favorite room. Now, this is the bathroom. And over here, we actually have a walk-in wardrobe hiding, where you can store all of your things, and this just again is what keeps this apartment really tidy, because we just have a room that is dedicated just to extra storage. And I mean, look at this absolutely insane bathroom. Now, what makes this space so incredibly unique is because we have these two historic windows that just let the green flood in from the outside, and the outside is also mimicked and integrated into the design again, because we have this absolutely gorgeous green jungle wallpaper that is draped all over one side, and it just creates this very eclectic and rich design. When I met the designer, she told me that she really loves to mix and match different tiles together to just create this depth and layer inside the design, and to just play with different scales. And so on the floor we have these larger, more muted brown tiles. But here in the shower corner we have again different tiles, and my favorite part of course is the vanity, because it is clad in high gloss orange tiles. And I think that this is just what is so incredible, because the color palette of the bathroom is the exact same that we have outside in the backyard. And it is just a little historic dream. There's a golden water faucet. There's a historic mirror that opens up to both sides that you can actually tilt. And it has this very antique mirrored glass that has all of these different stains. And then again, we have this gorgeous big light bulb that just illuminates the space. And of course, like in the rest of the apartment, we have plants here and there that just make the space really come to life. Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane and we are actually standing in Copenhagen in Denmark, and today we are going to look at this absolutely incredible New York style luxurious loft in Copenhagen's trendiest neighborhood in Nørrebro. And I'm super excited to show you because this apartment is one of my all-time favorites. It has an incredible art collection. It is industrial, but at the same time it has pops of color and clean lines. So let's go inside and take a look at this incredible New York style loft. Now, this apartment spans over 165 square meters. And even though it is an apartment, we actually have 2 floors, so you just have this very proper New York style loft. The building itself was built around 1900 and it used to be a corporate office building. So this space used to be a very creative and artistic space. Around 8 years ago, architects decided to turn this house into a couple of different apartments. The apartment is on the ground floor, which makes it seem more like a townhouse rather than an apartment. And also we have 2 floors, which makes it really cool. Before we go upstairs, if you want to help me, the easiest way you can is by subscribing to this channel to support us on our mission to make great design stand out and rise to the top. And if you want to get more daily design inspiration and also more behind the scenes content on our travels and everything else, check out our Instagram over here. The ground floor has an integrated entry area where you can store your jackets and shoes. And the rest of the 80 square meters are just this large open living room concept. And this is very characteristic for these New York style lofts, or of course also for lofts in Copenhagen. Now, as soon as I entered this apartment, I noticed that all of the walls, the floor and the ceiling are all perfectly white. And even the metal staircase that leads us up to the first floor is also made of metal that is painted white. So you just have this gorgeous white backdrop, and on top of the white backdrop you just have these different artworks or furniture items placed in front. And so you just have this crisp white background, and everything that you put on it just really pops. Over here we have the dining room area. The dining room area consists of a large wooden table that is over 30 years old, and it is surrounded by Costas chairs that have been designed by Philippe Starck in 1981. And these chairs have an incredible history. So the designer Philippe Starck actually once designed them for the Costas Cafe in Paris, but now you can just get them regularly. The family actually got their first 2 chairs while they were in Monaco in a casino, and they won some money. And so they just walked down the street and found a furniture shop and fell in love with the chairs and bought 2 of them home. And over the years, they have collected the rest of them. And you can just see how this living situation almost feels like it's out of a gallery, because we have these different brown tones, the cherry wood of the chairs, and it just really pops off of this crisp and white background. And it looks like a piece of art. I love this style. Also, if you're interested, I've created a free guide with 5 things that every home should have. It's completely free, and you can go check out the link in the description or just get it by scanning this QR code. Over here, we have the gorgeous, large, open kitchen area. The kitchen is also kept in this very crisp white color, and it just serves as the backdrop to make all of the items and decor that we have standing really pop. There's a generous kitchen island that has even been extended with a wooden table where you can stand and entertain, welcome some friends over, or drink a cup of coffee in the morning. And I really love the open metal shelving system that we have in the back, because this just really gives you a sleek and organized way to showcase all of your favorite kitchen appliances. And it just really shows that the family has a love for cooking, and that this kitchen really just turns into the heart of the home. And you know, I'm also personally obsessed with cooking and kitchens, so it's incredible. Inside the kitchen, we even have a small Corbusier sofa standing, which just makes it even more extra. And you just have this industrial steel, the raw, rough black leather, and again, just this white surface, and it's absolutely incredible. Just having a sofa right directly placed inside a kitchen just completely changes what a kitchen is, and goes from just cooking inside the kitchen and preparing a meal for your family all the way over to turning this space into really the center of attention and where people love to sit and spend their time. And I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Now I also want to have a sofa in my kitchen. What also really characterizes the ground floor as well as the apartment building is that we have these windows that go from the bottom all the way to the top. And they let the light flood in, but at the same time, you just have this constant connection to the inside and the outside. And because we have 3 very large windows on this side of the wall, it just really visually separates the areas from each other and just creates a sense of repetition. And at the same time, we have these little niches where you can have little things going on. So here we have a small seating area of another Costas chair paired with a side table from Eileen Gray. And it's a very classical yet kind of industrial design, the 2 of the items paired together. The couple and family also has a big love for art, and they've been collecting all of their artworks throughout their lives, and they love to go to Paris. And so, for example, these 2 lithographies over here are from a store in Paris that they love to go to again and again. The artwork really brings a lot of color and life into this apartment. And I love that you can really feel that the owners are living in this apartment and using it every single day, and that it is not some pretentious place, but that it is really a place that is lived in. So over here we have 2 bicycles standing inside the living room. And it's just a very spontaneous situation that I really like. Beneath the art, we have a very low sideboard and shelf that has a lot of books and bottles of wine stored. And because it is so low, you have a lot of space to showcase your personality. And so a lot of interesting objects and lamps are placed on top of it. And it seems like a little curated collection of objects. Actually, what is really funny and interesting is that this house is located and opens up to the biggest private courtyard in Copenhagen, which has been here for a very long time. So you actually have your own little park in front of the house, which is absolutely insane. I love that the architects who created the space were really consistent with their design choices. And so really the entire structure and backdrop of this apartment is entirely white. Even the metal staircase and this consistent design language really pays off. Now up here we have the second living area. The upper floor also has around 80 square meters, and you have this very large living room situation. There's 2 bathrooms on this side that are stacked on top of each other. One for the wife, one for the husband, because they like to keep their bathrooms separate, which I think is very cool. The living room is characterized by large windows that flood the entire room with light. And what really brings the space to life is the colorful and bold furniture. Most of it is Scandinavian and Danish, so the gorgeous daybed in leather is an absolute eye-catcher, and it is from Boho, as is the sofa. And it just creates this very coherent design language. And sometimes placing a single piece of furniture, like this leather cognac daybed, and just leaving a lot of space around it really is what makes the design stand out, because you just reduce everything to its minimum. And it just is very characteristic for a loft. I love that the living room is kept in a lot of different colors that are popping out from the artworks or from the blue sofa by Boho. Or we have this gorgeous fur-like fabric and texture from the little Petra chair by Tradition. And these different materials, the fabric, the fur, and also the leather paired together just create this very rich and layered atmosphere. Here again, in the top floor, you can just see the incredible love that the family has for their art, and in every single wall that you look at is used to portray their love for art. And you have these carefully selected compositions of artworks, and they really make this entire space feel full of life and bold pops of color. And we even have a small pile of differently framed artworks on the floor that are just leaning against the wall, because it just seems like they have too much art for this place. Also, there is a balcony where the family loves to sit outside in the evenings and read and just enjoy this gorgeous, large, private backyard that they have. Or look at the other buildings. And even though we are in a super central and the trendiest neighborhood in Copenhagen, Nørrebro, it's a very calm and scenic atmosphere. On top of the sofa, we have an abstract art placed directly next to a mirror, and both are framed in the same golden frames. And I love this because the couple just naturally extended the artwork and basically created their own composition and their own curated artwork. And I love that the mirror has been placed in the same way that the real art has. Next to the sofa, there is a working area with a large wooden desk where some work is to be done. And in this part is where we enter the sleeping area. And this is actually something that I really love, because the couple decided to just buy 2 regular IKEA shelves and to turn them into their own walk-in wardrobe. So they put the shelves opposite of each other to mirror each other. And then they just bought this very strong marbled wood and basically created their own shelf around it. So you just have this very expensive looking walk-in wardrobe that is inherently just 2 IKEA shelves. Here we are already in the bedroom, and even though the apartment is over 165 square meters, there is only 1 bedroom, and it is this one. And like the other rooms, we have a very large window where you can open every single window, and you just have the space flooded with light. There is a Costas chair where you can put your clothes after the end of a long day. And there are different artworks on the wall that just create this very graphic and structured environment. Here is the largest private courtyard in Copenhagen, and you can see that it has been divided into different gardens that the families who live here share, and it just creates this very communal atmosphere within these buildings because you just have a large garden that everybody has access to. And in the summer, it almost still is summer, the garden is just filled with flowers and everything is blooming and alive. And you are just really anchored and living within nature inside one of the trendiest and coolest neighborhoods in Copenhagen. And I think that this just juxtaposition of living inside a quirky neighborhood while really having all of this nature around you is super cool. Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. My name is Jane and I'm super excited because today we will step into the private home of one of Denmark's most influential designers. This house isn't just where Finn Juhls lived, but it also shaped his entire design language, and this is also where he created most of his incredible furniture designer icons. Come with me as we explore a Scandinavian Danish house that still feels decades ahead of its time and is an absolute masterpiece. If you love Finn Juhls or just Danish and Scandinavian design in general, you will absolutely love this video. Also, an incredible thank you to the Museum of Finn Juhls because they opened up their Finn Juhls house just for us. As soon as you walk into the space and home of Finn Juhls, you realize just how personal the space is. There's light flooding in through the windows and everything is just drenched and covered in this gorgeous light. The house consists of 2 blocks which together form an L, and within the space you have all of these niches and tilts inside the floor layout so that you have this very natural and layered floor plan. On the walls there are a lot of different artworks hanging because he loved art and he collected it throughout his entire life. And the entire home is filled with his iconic furniture designs. But because the space is so layered, it doesn't feel like a cold showroom. You could just really see his personal design taste and the way that he lived. Here in the entryway area, a sunken seating area in bold blue creates a cozy, almost cocoon-like corner. The built-in planter and glass shelving wall behind it really blur the line between architecture, furniture and decoration, and this is what Finn Juhls really was a master at. It's a perfect example of his holistical thinking that furniture and spaces are inseparable from each other. The house itself is located north of Copenhagen in a small town, and it is a bungalow that is laying inside a garden within a forest. So you have this very personal, dreamy atmosphere and the green that comes in through the windows. If you want to help me, you can subscribe to this channel right now so that we can continue to visit these incredible places and show you the best design in the world. Also, a quick update from editing this week's video. If you want more behind the scenes content and interior design tips, go follow our Instagram. We are already standing in the living room, and the living room has an L-shaped layout with different seating areas. Finn Juhls really loved to create these compositions. He really was a pioneer in the way that he saw design, and he completely revolutionized the Danish modern design. Because unlike other contemporary Danish designers, he always started each furniture item completely from scratch, only using the dimensions from his own body and figuring it out. And this is what created this very organic design, which is very sculptural and has a very refined aesthetic. And I'm absolutely in love with it because you can just get lost within every single piece. And whenever he designed, he always had movement and life and flow in mind. In the living room, we have 2 of his most famous furniture items standing opposite of each other. They're both kind of hugging and surrounding the fireplace. And on one side, we have the chieftain chair, which is one of his most daring and most famous designer pieces. And this chair is just an example of how refined his design aesthetic is. Because there isn't a single piece of wood that is straight, but everything has its own curve and it's dynamic and alive. And it really just reminds you of everyday life and of the movements, and I absolutely love that. Opposite of the chieftain chair, there is the poet sofa, and it has a much more feminine and elegant and softer touch. And it was actually designed for this exact house that we're standing in. So it is incredible to see the poet sofa where it actually was designed and where it was intended to stand. And I love that to frame the sofa area among the fireplace, instead of using a carpet to zone the area, he used bricks, but the bricks have the function that a normal carpet usually would have. But I just love this really unconventional and playful approach to design that you can see throughout the house. Above the poet sofa, there's a large painting and artwork of his wife, Hanne. Behind me, we have one of his offices, which was also a very central part of the living room. And this just shows you how central designing and working and creating his art was to his life. And you have his iconic drawers in monochrome blue colors and light pouring in from the windows. And also, I love it, there's a large pinboard where there's all of his sketches and drawing pinned upon. And it's just really fascinating to see because you basically get an insight into his design process. And it seems like he just left for a stroll in the garden and he will be back any second. Hold up, let's do a quick color analysis of this incredible living room. So what is so incredible about this iconic living room is that the entire living room lives in really warm colors and warm tones. It basically consists of a family of warm browns, soft cognac colors, beige, taupes, and off-white, and also a muted sage. And this just creates this perfect balance and sophisticated color palette. Now, what Juhls loved to do, and you'll notice this in all of the existing rooms in this house, is that he loved to paint the ceilings. And so the ceiling in the living room has been painted in this soft mustard yellow tint. And it just creates this feeling like the sun is flooding into the room, and it kind of hugs you and just drenches everything in this very warm and loving glow. And if we were to name the color palette of this living room, it would definitely be a warm analog color palette that is disrupted with a few pops of cooler, more bluish and colder colors. And so this living room just perfectly portrays the 70-20-10 rule that I always talk about. If you want to learn more about this rule and also the 5 mistakes that 90% of people make when it comes to color, you can get my free guide where I show you also how to fix all of these mistakes. If your color game is already great, then you are one of the few people, because it is literally the #1 thing that people ask me. It won't be free forever, so do yourself and the guests who visit you a favor and get the free guide. You can get it either by clicking the link in the description or by scanning this QR code, by taking out your phone, opening the camera app and pointing it at the QR code, and it will redirect you and give it to you. It's completely free. This room, his living room and workspace, is the perfect example of his incredible design. The light flows in through the large windows, connecting the interiors with the outside gardens, and you just have this connection of the indoors and outdoors. Every surface, every color is carefully chosen to balance harmony and contrast. And I feel like what makes this house so fascinating is that it isn't just about furniture, but it really is about atmosphere. Juhls designed the spaces to really speak to all of our senses. Another striking thing that you can really see in this house is how intertwined Scandinavian and Japanese design are with each other. Of course, Japanese design is much more minimalist and even more reduced, but throughout the house you have all of these Japanese vases, sculptures, and lots of art and inspiration. And you can just really see that Juhls took a lot of inspiration. For example, the sliding doors that we have throughout the house are also Japanese inspired, and this is just a great example of how intertwined the two design aesthetics are. There even is the Japan chair that he created. Let me show you. So what makes this house so unique, and what really again just shows the way that he approached design, is that you always have these long visual axes where you can look, and they're always facing a window, so you always have the light pouring in from the end. And it just creates an absolutely unique, one-of-a-kind situation because you always feel connected to the outside. And here we are again in the entry area. So over here we have his famous Japan chair standing, and it was actually designed for a Japanese meeting. And so he just really took inspiration from the Japanese aesthetic, and you can really see this in his design, that it is much more reduced and the lines are much sleeker and much more clear than, for example, say his chieftain chair. And I really love that he just always took inspiration from the different countries and cultures and translated them into his own design language. Now follow me into the second part of the house. So, like I mentioned, we always have these large visual axes, and over here we can actually go a few steps forward. Over here is the dining room area, and it is a very understated design that is very simple and just stays true to the Scandinavian design language. There's the Egyptian chair that Juhls designed. He loved his house to always change and just always adjust to where he was in his life. So throughout his years, I think he lived here for like 43 years, which is quite long. Throughout his life, he always exchanged the furniture pieces whenever he designed new ones. So the Egyptian chairs are the ones who were standing here last. What I really noticed and fell in love with upon entering the house is that it just has this incredible sense of warmth, and it really feels like a loving home. And I think that in the dining room area, we can really get a sense of why, because we have all of these natural wooden tones that are being used, sometimes even in the ceiling. And also here, there's all of these really warm and heartful colors. This lamp is designed by Arne Jacobsen, and you can see that lamps is something that Juhls like to take from his friends and other fellow designers. And it is a very unique lamp. There's only 12 of these lamps in the entire world, and one of them hangs in this house. So it is super special, and I'm really thankful to be able to see it here live today. As we come from the dining area, over here we have the kitchen. And the kitchen really is an example of this Scandinavian reduction to the essentials. We have an almost entirely white, quite narrow room layout, and the kitchen cabinets are all made from this wood that has been painted white. So the kitchen is a space just reduced to its bare essentials. There's a stainless steel countertop that goes from one side all the way to the other side of the room, and the only colorful accents that we have is of course the food that's being prepared, but at the same time the green of the outside that comes in and turns into a piece of art. And whenever you're washing your dishes here, you can look outside into your own little forest. You wanted the interiors to feel like flowing transitions and not like closed boxes that you're trapped in. So right now we are already in the second part of the L, and this is the sleeping area. Through a narrow hallway that again just shines light into the green of the outside, we come into the master bedroom. The hallway is lined with Juhls' signature shelving system, carrying books, art, and playful wooden figures from all over the world. This perspective really leads the eye through the sequence of the rooms, each opening up towards the garden. And this layering of space is very characteristic of Juhls. And this is just a dream of a primary bedroom. The space is super large. There's a lot of space. On one side, there's a wooden bed with a very low profile that has also been designed by Juhls, and it is kept in these two different shades of blue. And it is accompanied by two of his desk drawers, one's in warm tones and one's in cool tones. And they just create this very playful atmosphere, because I love that they just have so many different colors. We have a large seating area and a large table, and I think that this is actually one of the only rooms that has a furniture designer piece that wasn't designed by himself. This lamp is by Paul Henningsen, and you might have seen similar ones like this, but this one actually is the prototype, and it only exists one time in the world, and it is over here. And it has these special nooks and wires on the top, so you can actually adjust the height, and you won't believe the price of this lamp. It is over 250,000 euros or dollars, and it absolutely blows my mind. Comment below if you think the price is justified or not. I personally think it kind of is, because Paul Henningsen is an absolute master of light, and he dedicated his entire life basically to creating these timeless lamps and figuring out how to manipulate light so that you just achieve this perfect light effect that you wanted. And on one wall we have the iconic shelving system by Juhls, and it is filled and overflowing with books, and you can really see and get a sense of how him and his family lived here and what kind of lifestyle they had. And I think it's so magical that these spaces are preserved. I'm also really thankful that we get to be here today, because the museum opened up this house today just for us, so we can make a video about it. So big thank you. Now let's go into the guest bedroom or kids' bedroom. Over here is the guest bedroom, and I love that even though this room is basically almost empty, it still doesn't feel tight, but it actually feels very expansive. And I think the reason why it is this way is because the walls are quite high, and the ceiling has been painted in this green color that just adds this very mystical layer to it. And inside the green ceiling there's a light shaft that just lets the light flood in from above, so the space is illuminated. There's a large window, and I really love the simplicity inside this room. There's a simple wooden bed in the center. It has a very low profile, and it also really just reminds me of the Japanese aesthetic. There's also a Japanese small seating bench next to it. And instead of a headboard, one entire wall has been covered in this soft brown strong fiber fabric that just creates this very tactile and comfortable design. And instead of having bedside tables, to one side there is a small box where you can store your clothes while you're visiting, and on the other side there's just this gorgeous antique sculpture that has been put on a small piece of wood, and it's just a very symbolic thing to do. And of course, on every single wall there's an artwork that just lets your senses wander. Of course, Juhls didn't just have an office inside his living room, but he also had his proper office that was dedicated just to his work. Anyway, I kind of have the feeling, because in every single room inside this apartment there's always a large table, and I'm wondering if he liked to work in the different areas, sometimes in his bedroom, sometimes in his living room, sometimes in his private office, because I wouldn't know why else he needed so many different tables. If you know the answer, comment below. I'd be super interested to know. The office is one long, narrow room that has a large table spanning from one side to the other side. One entire wall has been turned into a pinboard, and you can see different sources of inspiration as well as different photographs. And over here we have yet another pinboard with different sketches of his for his house, as well as other pictures. And when you step inside this office, you just feel transported back into time when he was still working here, and it feels very magical. And of course, what he always loves to do is to paint the ceiling a different color. So here the walls are white, but the ceiling is actually in this kind of lemony, zesty yellow, and it just creates this very crisp and unexpected design. In the more private section of the house, of course, there also is a bathroom. And here you can just get a feel of how simplistic he thought and lived in some areas of his life. So this is actually Juhls' former bathroom. It's a tight and narrow space that is completely clad with white tiles. There's a large window that just lets the gorgeous light and outside forest flood into the space. But other than that, it's a super minimal area. There's a very simple sink, a simple bathtub, and a small mirror. And I think that it's really fascinating that he created these living rooms and sleeping areas that are absolutely works of art. But when it comes, for example, to the kitchen or the bathroom, he had a much more simplistic behind the stairs, and it is a large open room. And even in the bathroom, you would think in a space this unique, they would forget the bathroom and just create a regular one. But even the toilet has an incredible space-age design. The mirror is filled with light and just creates this beautiful light that illuminates your face. And if you like this video, you will love this one up there.